Hi everyone, and welcome to CenterFrame Selects. Today we're doing the live announcement of the top 5 screenplays selected by Rob Yescombe. Rob is a fantastic writer who's been working for 20 plus years in the film and gaming industry. He had his debut feature called Outside the Wire, starring Anthony Mackie, and last year he had the #1 movie on Amazon called Jackpot, starring John Cena. Rob, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you being here.
The pleasure is all mine so far.
I appreciate you doing this because you literally just got back from Los Angeles.
I did. Being in this windowless basement is somewhat crushing, but
No, this is not a basement. This is a high production.
Oh, sorry.
studio.
Yes, no. Being in this,
just the illusion. Don't ruin it.
Yes, that's right.
No, but I appreciate it. So you're back and forth between England and Los Angeles a lot for your work, right?
Well, a combination of family and work. Yeah, my wife's from California, so we have a lot of our friends and family are over that side, and also on the east side and in England. So the way we describe it is we're always traveling, never on vacation.
I'm really curious how you manage your writing now, because I know you diverged early in your career away from film. Because when you started, did you want to work in film?
Let me give you the whole boring background.
Please, let's start.
So
where did you start?
I trained as a fine artist. I thought I was going to be a performance artist. That's what I wanted to do. I went to art school. And while I was doing this art degree, I looked around and saw that the percentage of people who were employed at the end of this art degree was maybe about 0.01%. I thought, oh no, I need to do something else. And so I was very lucky. I had a tiny little shoebox art studio in an old abandoned chocolate factory that happened to be opposite an Indian Asian production company. And it was a 2-person company. They liked to work at 3 a.m. I liked to work at 3 a.m. We got friendly. I ended up moonlighting for them and ended up writing some Indian cable TV.
Nice.
The thing that was really important about that for me was the budget for the show that we did every week. This is a half-hour show made in the UK. Was £250 total. So it meant you had to be able to write, to direct, to edit, produce, because you couldn't afford to hire anybody else. So I'm 18 years old, getting paid 50 quid a week, making this TV show. It's the best time of my life. And the guy who was directing that TV show, or director of the company was directing the show, he got I think a development deal with the UK Film Council, and I sort of helped a tiny bit in developing a feature with him, and that kind of gave me the bug. And at the same time, in the UK, there used to be, this is a very long story, there used to be a new writers initiative called TAPS, T-A-P-S. And I was shortlisted for a comedy award at TAPS. And by incredible coincidence, there was a video games company in the Midlands called Free Radical Design. For any fans out there, made Time Splitters. This is the team that made GoldenEye back in the day. And they happened to be looking for a writer. They happened to get in touch with this very obscure awards body. They said, hey, does anybody want to write a game? I said, well, I've been playing games since I was a kid. So I went overnight from my £250 a week show to a $30 million game.
Jeez.
With no real idea how games got made, what good writing was. All I had was the white hot magnesium burn of the enthusiasm to write, but none of the craft. And it seems like a great opportunity. In fact, it was kind of the opposite, because it was a big catastrophic disaster, in no small part because I was not ready for it.
Right.
So one of the things I like to talk about and press upon people is everybody wants the opportunity. Doesn't mean it's the right time. But if you do have the opportunity and you mess it up, there's no better way to learn how not to make a shit game than to make a really shit one. So that was how I got into games, which is what I've been doing in some capacity for the last almost 20 years. The way I got into movies was I wrote a spec in 2011, I think it was, end of 2011. That, again, I didn't know a single person in the business. I knew like one person who introduced me to one person, kind of clawed my way through. I was so green that I was writing this spec in Microsoft Word and like tabbing it along to try and get the formatting. And I was very lucky that script got optioned by what at the time was a very small company, small producers, who now are better known as 42, who do tons of big movies. But Ben Pewitt at 42 optioned that script, and then it just kind of went off into the ether for over a decade. During which time, other writers had kind of come onto it, directors and stuff. And I knew it was kind of percolating in the background, but really I just had forgotten about it. And my wife and I, we were on a road trip. We were overnight in Vegas. I got a text at 3 a.m. from an actor that I'd made a short film with 5 years prior. He said, "Hey, I'm at an audition and the script's got your name on it." I was like, "No, it doesn't." He said, "Yeah, it's just outside the wire." I was like, "What?" Following day, get an email from the producers and say, "Hey, Netflix are greenlighting this and Anthony Mackie wants to star in it and we shoot in Budapest. You should come." I'm like, "Huh?"
That's amazing.
So I was very lucky that I just kind of chanced my way into film on a spec that I'd written a decade plus earlier. I should also specify that movie ultimately, the story is still fundamentally what I wrote, but it had gone through other writers in that time. I think that there is an understandable anxiety that certainly people early in their artistic careers have of like, oh no, someone's going to overwrite what I do. I'm so grateful that those other writers carried that boulder up the hill to production because I, at the time, was not ready to do that. Mm-hmm. So these are all the lessons that I've picked up along the way, which is, do the craft learning part, which is really painful, accept that other people are going to help you carry the boulder. Your vision may get somewhat diluted, but that's how we get over the line.
It is teamwork after all, though.
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right. That it's when you come into the business of the arts, no matter what capacity that is, you don't come in because you love the craft. You come in because you just feel you must do it.
Yeah.
And must express, right? Which is an essential component, but it can't be the whole thing.
Yeah.
The thing that allowed me to have a breakthrough and then subsequently a career of a sort, it was the will to do the mathematics of it, not just the part that was fun to begin with.
Let's bring up short films for a second before we delve into the short scripts that we have to talk about. Mm-hmm. Where do short films fit into your experience of getting further? I think you mentioned you had made a concept trailer for something earlier in your career, I think.
Oh, sure. I've done a couple of shorts in my time. I think that their use is so broad, right? Part of it can be just confirming your own desire to make things. I think it is actually an important thing to do. Sometimes just the feeling of making it isn't enough. I need to actually do it. It's been a great tool in networking. There are still people that I met on those shorts that I'm still in touch with that maybe you don't do work together for a number of years, but somehow the business always brings people back together. I think it's an essential part of building your profile as a filmmaker.
I agree. Networking wise, obviously your journey is, I think, slightly unusual in that most people don't necessarily start the way you started as a writer, especially. Sure. But what's a good advice that you can give to a writer about networking? Because I feel like that's the biggest question I always get. Where do I start as a writer, to start networking?
Well, in my opinion, the reality is a writer's job is 1% writing, 99% sales. And it can be a while before people accept that reality. You have to find a way for that 99% to be fun and interesting. Figuring out who you want to talk to, you're a detective. Figuring out how you're going to talk to them, that's character. You can work on yourself the same way you work on your material to try and make yourself ready to network if it's not something you feel comfortable doing. But in my experience and my estimation, a great script is great, but if you cannot be in the room, it's a problem. You need to find a way to make yourself able to get over the line and communicate with people.
I always tell people to get on set, like as much as possible, like you just said. Get on set, even if you're not the writer of the film. If you can be on set, the people you meet, who knows who you meet. I think it's one of the easiest ways to network is to get on set in one way or another.
Somebody said to me once that so much of networking or general meetings is really just people trying to figure out, can you hang? And I think a part of hanging is what we immediately imagine, which is this person a chill character to spend time with. But I think a big part of it is also understanding over time, what is the impact of my work on other people? And I don't mean emotionally, I mean practically. If a producer is going to produce something, if a crew is going to work to build something you've created, I need to have a really good understanding of what am I asking them to do? What am I asking them to be? What am I asking them to go through for me? And the more you understand it, the more you can be empathetic with them, and the more you feel like you're simpatico. So yeah, being on the set for sure is invaluable.
Does all that. Yeah, absolutely. So shall we start talking about the various scripts that you had the pleasure to read? The way we're going to do this, we're not picking a winner. We are highlighting the 5 best scripts that you came across. That
I think what you mean is all 5 are winners.
Yeah, right? But the whole goal is to celebrate the talent, because I always tell people it's not actually the script that's the product. It's you as the writer, it's you as the filmmaker are the product. People invest in you much more than they invest into the actual script, you know? Mm-hmm. And so it's important to celebrate the people that are behind it and the ideas that they have, you know? And so what we're trying to do is give people an opportunity to be seen based on their ideas. And then our job as CenterFrame is to highlight the people and introduce them to at our industry showcase, at with our email list, and hopefully get the meetings based with this, even with producers in our CenterFrame community, to hopefully get these projects off the ground, you know? Right. So we're going in alphabetical order because, again, it's no preference. This is how they came to us. So,
but I do prefer the alphabet in a certain order. So.
There's no argument with an alphabetical order. It just isn't. So that means that the very first script on our list is Crumpet by Johnny King.
Mm-hmm. Johnny, looking down the barrel. Johnny, if ever I saw a studio movie concept that you need to get on and do, this is it. Reading this, my feeling was it is conceptually such a no-brainer. I'm nervous for you because somebody out there is having this same idea. It's such a great concept. Essentially what this is like Christmas Beetlejuice, right? It's like if you're on the naughty list, this elf will help you get off the naughty list. And he's a curmudgeon and a sleazeball or whatever. A great concept. It's a no-brainer. Johnny, get on and write the feature. Don't fuck about with whatever else you're doing. Trust me, do this one.
I loved it too. It's so funny. Like the first motherfucker had me in stitches just because I was like not expecting that at all, you know? And so that to me was just a great, I was like, oh, what am I reading now? You know? Okay. And then from then on, I was like, oh, this is brilliant. And the characters are so rich in just such a short period of time. I think the names of the characters are such a great idea, you know, to call them Crumpet and Cinnamon and Bo, you've got all that. I thought that was really clever. And then it's just a really great progression of the story. I mean, I genuinely enjoyed it, you know?
Yes, I thought it was well-paced. And I liked that, I think it's Eve or Eva?
Eve, yeah.
Not knowing what her naughty crime was and just slowly unfurling that, I thought was really interesting. I think you could even push that further than it was. But again, conceptually, it's right there. Johnny, we were talking about you before we started shooting. That my understanding is you've done a variety of other stuff, touched other genres. This is your genre. Get on with it and get on with this idea and do it quick. Don't fuck about.
But that's a hell of an endorsement, my friend. Glad you picked it because it's definitely one of the favorites that I had in the list. So I'm glad it came onto your list as well.
It's the thing that I think is so important to say here is, you know, I've had the good fortune to work at some quite data-driven companies in games. I've worked with data-driven companies in streaming. And have a pretty good sense of what is going on behind the UI of something like, you know, Netflix or Amazon, right? Which is the odds of a user rowing across 5, columning across 10, landing on a tab, converting to a view. The odds are 0. No one's doing that. And the way that the studio de-risks that problem is with cast, who are super expensive, or with the algorithm, whose influence ends on the edge of that platform, or with premise that's free. Because ultimately, no matter how much money the studio spends on marketing something, a huge part of its success comes down to somewhere in the Midwest, 2 people are going to have a conversation. One of them's seen the movie, the other one hasn't. They say, what's the movie about? And those people don't pitch things for a living. We have to facilitate that conversation, give them an answer to that question that is so laser beam precise that you can't fuck it up. Oh, it's Christmas Beetlejuice.
Done.
Somebody's buying that.
Johnny, this is your cue, I think. So let's talk some more, shall we? You might even get to meet him if you come to the industry showcase that's going to be on November 4th, because we invite all the recipients from this as part of the industry showcase, so they can come and be introduced there. So hopefully you get to meet him. Shall we move on to the next script?
Sure.
Let's do it. Okay. The next script in alphabetical order is The Cuckold by David Bradley.
I thought this was a really fascinating piece because I think the short film art form, everybody likes a nice turn at the end. And oftentimes what will happen is the writing up until the turn is servicing the turn so hard that the bulk of the script isn't that engaging or isn't that emotional. Here, that didn't happen. That this is something that is very emotional. You feel where this character is at, and yet there's still a twist at the end that you legitimately don't see coming.
That's a great twist.
Really great twist. Really smart twist.
I'm going to give the quick premise here for everybody who hasn't read it. But the basic premise is that a man after a paternity test realizes that the negative paternity test questions the fatherhood. And
you're going to give away the twist.
No, I'm not going to give it.
We can't give away the twist. Look,
I wouldn't give away the twist, but
we give away the twist. Look, we have to assume that people have read it or are going to read it. So what the script is about is there's a character who we think is getting the result of a paternity test that we think means his son is
his
not
own
his son.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of the scenes are laid out to make us believe this deeper and deeper. We believe that this guy is going to take some kind of dramatic action towards his wife, towards his son. We're not really sure. It's all sort of by implication. And then what we discover is, in fact, the paternity test is he has tested his father and discovered that he is not his father's son, and confronts his mother at the end. And it's just such a neatly constructed twist that's completely within the confines of the world that the script has set up, and I think is emotionally meaningful. I thought it was great. My one little critique, if I may, this is purely subjective, by the way. Also, we should say the writer's name, please.
I did. David Bradley.
Of course.
Yeah.
David, this is my 10 cents. What do I know? But I think there's too much language here. I think that you can, with stage direction, I think you can boil it down even more. And I think the more you boil it down, the more intense our expectation is going to become. Because every time you hit these great images or these great moments that imply this character is going to react in a big, impulsive way, the less text I have between those moments, the more intense this thing is going to feel. So that's my one little thing, is I would go through and be like, okay, I think you've painted the picture so well with the events that unfold. I think you'd leave less work at trying to paint the picture within the prose itself. That's just my taste, but I
don't disagree with you. I do think that the script, the characters and the twist and everything is so tightly compacted that you could get rid of most of what's written and it would still work incredibly well, because the emotion in every scene is still there. But I think like he has the whole letter that is in there, which we don't need. And we as a viewer, when we read it, are never going to read it, you know?
Sure.
And so we just need to know what's the content of the letter, you know, in the sense that no, we don't need to know what the content is. We need to know the reaction to that letter, you know? Mm-hmm. We need to know negative and him going, oh, fuck, you know? And that's
truly
it,
think,
you know?
Just to be really clear about this, David, is I think this is not about restructuring anything.
No.
This is just about going through line by line and saying, if they told me that I could only do half the words for this sentence, do that. I promise you this thing is going to come out razor sharp. And I think this is an excerpt from a feature, I think.
I don't know, actually.
It feels to me like maybe it's an excerpt from a feature.
It'd be a great twist in the feature.
Great twist in the feature. And I think if I'm going to guess that because you're so good at beating out the emotional part of these characters and their reactions to it, I'm going to guess you might be struggling with length coming out quite long on the feature. I bet the story is the right length. I bet it's just the prose style. If you boil that down, it's going to change the whole thing.
I agree. I think the concept and the twist is so simple. Also, what I love is my favorite short films are always when the concept is so simple and you think you know what you're looking at, and its emotional core is really strong. There was actually a short film that we did when we discussed Adam Randall Hood, exactly the same kind of thing. It was such a simple emotional core that was rich in complexity, but the actual emotional core was easy to understand. But it was just a really like complex situation, and it presents the best thing to my mind. The best premise always has a dilemma, not just a problem, but a dilemma that has no good solution, and yes. This film does that. It gives you that dilemma of what does one do when you find that out, and then not just that, plausibly within the confines of this premise gives us a twist we didn't see coming. And I think that is perfect. I agree. I think the weakest part about it is not the story. It is just the prose that could be tighter and could be more rich by being less is more,
Trust your story.
Yeah. Don't change your story, but you can write it tighter if you want. Shall we move on? Please. Let's do it. Okay, so third one in this alphabetical order is Echoes, which I think is a very interesting one.
I'm a very minimalist writer. I have a strong compulsion inside me that every time I write a word, I'm like, oh, that's a mistake. And not because I think I've got it wrong, but I just feel like it's kind of a failure of my craft to write anything that's other than the absolute bare minimum. So I really admire when someone is able to write something that actually is quite lavish and still, hold you in the moment. This I really loved. I think it was so full of. First of all, it's very clear to me that Diana is very close to this subject matter. It feels very well researched. As a result, feels very lived in, feels very real, and at the same time, it's somehow big and romantic with a capital R, not as in romance, but just big romantic piece. There are so many great cinematic tools on display here. The contrast of dialogue to image is really smart.
I think the visuals are fantastic.
Putting dialogue about laughter next to images about death and vice versa, and even in there's lots of great showing moments and not telling, like her running away from the letter. I found really moving. But also the telling, I think, is really great. Where I think in one of the letters, the soldier's describing how the rats have stopped being afraid of the men because they know that the men are going to die. That really moved me.
Such a strong line. I agree with you.
It's a great piece of writing that is kind of about the prose, but still is full of these great moments visually.
It's a proper historical epic in a short film form. Like I feel like that's hard to do without it feeling too montagey, because there's a big risk that something like this could just feel like, well, we're in World War One and World War II, like we're past so much, but it never felt that way reading it.
The skill of it, I think, is that, and this again is a very hard thing to do, is that this is in well-trodden territory.
Yeah.
And doing something that feels cinematically and in the writing itself doesn't feel like, oh, I've seen this before, is very surprising. I thought that was great.
I agree. I think it is a really, really strong piece. I think my only question is how filmable it is, because it's not a small project, I mean, this could be a really, really big project, so this is my only question about whether how can this be achieved at a reasonable budget? And also I was wondering, was this condensed from something much larger into a short film format? Is this a proof of concept for something bigger, and that's the only sort of questions I have. But I think it's an incredible historical piece for that,
I personally, I don't care if she makes it or not.
Right.
Because what I see here is real command of the craft.
Right.
This is great writing. Is it a practical thing to produce at this stage in their career? I don't know. Who cares? What I know is this person can write. And this, sometimes you'll read something and you'll find a short where someone is so obsessed with the turn of the short, the twist.
Right.
And you're like, this person's never going to write anything again. They just had this one idea and then it's gone. This is a person who's going to go on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't worry about the making of this one bit. Is it a feature? Probably not.
Right.
Does it matter? I don't think so. I want to know what she's going to do next.
Right. So let's move on to Machines Can't Love by Mark Harrison.
You know what's so great about this is, Mark, I loved this. Again, as a minimalist, I loved this. I've had the good fortune to work on some stuff in games that is dialogue free, where you're trying to tell a story without dialogue. I know how hard it is and the precision it takes to do something that is clear and emotional. And one of the things that impressed me most about this is that the twist is in the title and we still didn't see it coming. Genius. I loved it.
I like Mark a lot as well because he works in advertising a lot. So he comes from that world, and he wants to work more in film and television and stuff. But he's such a busy guy. He's constantly working on these projects that I've been trying to meet up more with him just because I like hanging out with him, you know. But he's just always busy, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool. I'm glad he submitted to this because I was worried that he might miss this opportunity because I thought his writing would lend this extremely well. So I'm really glad that he did because I think he also has like you said, he has a really dense style. Like he gets from point to point really directly without meandering about with too many words or too fluffy.
Almost like haiku in its. It's interesting you use the word dense. I mean, to me, it's pure simplicity. Every single line hits something that's progressing story, progressing character, progressing emotion. Mm-hmm. You know, that is not easy to do. There's not an ounce of fat on that script. And it's not, this really doesn't matter one tiny bit, Mark, but the formatting is unconventional. And I was curious about whether that was a choice, because the writing seems so experienced that I wondered, like, what's with this very unconventional choice, and yet the writing feels so like refined. And it's interesting hearing him talk. You say he comes from advertising. I wonder if that's about how you're formatting material for advertising. Maybe
it's interesting. I don't know. You know, that's one of the reasons why I want to hang out with him, because I've always liked his writing, and I don't really get to talk to him enough about it. You know.
One side note for Mark, just in case you didn't know, and you're going to have any kids, babies can't drink cow milk. Just so you know, I know it works in the confines of this as a piece of science fiction. Just in case anybody was influenced by that, they can't drink cow milk. But
just formula for a reason. You know.
But it's works so perfectly here. Let me look through my little notes and see what else I thought was great. I mean, every single beat in this was clever. And again, that there's a twist ending that's in the title. He tells you what the truth of the story is, makes you believe it's the opposite, and then brings you back to the title. Great. Perfect, succinct. It is a perfect haiku. Loved it.
I'm glad you picked it as well. It's also one of my favorites. So let's do the final one, shall we?
Please.
All right. The last one on the list is We Dream in Color by Kane Wilson.
This was an interesting one because Kane, I got good news and I got bad news. The bad news is this is a great idea. And the reason why that's bad news is I have to tell you, there are a number of projects that are floating around Hollywood that are this concept. I'm sorry to tell you. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue it, but just so you know, you came up with a great idea. Unfortunately, I'm aware that there are a few things tangential to this that are around. However, to take something that I've read other versions of and for it to be so compelling that's impressive. The thing that I liked most about this was not the idea, because I've seen that idea before. What I loved about this was the writing. The minute you start reading it, you're going to finish it. And that is, again, when you're plowing through scripts, that's not something that a lot of people can do. So that was the thing that really impressed me, is you start reading his writing, you're going to finish his writing.
I think it's interesting because as somebody who writes myself, it's always one of those frustrating experiences when you find out, oh man, I had that idea, you know. But you also realize many times the core idea is not what sets you apart from
Exactly
what
right.
what the movies are.
And this is something I really wanted to stress to Kane. I don't know where you're at in your career, but ultimately what really, really matters is, can you write? Which seems like a sort of spurious thing to say, but actually the truth is not many people can do it in a way that if you are, a producer or you're running a studio where you can say, well, I want to hire someone who can solve this problem for me. You're not just looking for the guy who comes up with a good idea. You're looking for the person who can write and turn a story. And that is abundantly clear that he's capable of doing.
So let me ask you this. I mean, obviously, when you get to a certain commercial point, do you have to be protective with your ideas because you don't want to end up somebody else jumping the gun, maybe coming up before you? But on the other hand,
no one ever does it. No. It's only ever accidental. I don't think there's ever, at least in my experience, and I've been doing this 20 years, I've never seen somebody be like, oh, I'm going to take that idea for myself.
I've not seen it either, but people get protective because you get these horror stories of they take this or they stole that, and I've never seen it either.
Maybe it happens, but I think actually the way to protect that is not like, oh, send it to yourself in an envelope, or oh, copyright it, or oh, don't tell anybody, or whatever. The way you protect is write something else.
Yeah,
get on with it. Right? You write 20 things. You're not going to give a shit if somebody had the same idea as idea number one. You're indestructible because a career is not a script. A career is scripts, plural. Get on with the next one.
And that's the thing. And it's also you as a person, because like you said, can you hang, And so people will, they'll see that you can write. But then they'll go, yeah, okay, but I can't imagine being with this person for the next 6 months developing this, It's so much of it is your character, So yes, your ideas matter in opening the doors, but they're not that important to sustain your career. Sustaining your career comes from working well with people, and having great skill, which you should have. And I think that is the merit part of what we do. But a lot of it is just, I like working with this person, in the end, it comes down to that. I mean, some people are too expensive. You can't work with them, and some people are too inexperienced. You can't work with them. But if they hit those marks, then it's a judgment of character, because once you have enough skill, that's it.
I want to stress to Kane, I see a career here. So keep pushing.
Thank you for picking these 5 because they are great ideas and I know great scripts, and these are all fantastic writers. And I would like to summarize just what you think are important next steps for people to basically have. You have these scripts. What do you do? Like, what do you recommend people do with it?
The number one thing is the next thing, right? It's very easy to snag on one idea and say, well, this is the thing I'm going to do. And then you spend a sizable chunk of your emotional and creative juice stuck on this one thing. Once you write something, get on with the next one. You got a lifetime to go back to that again if you want to. But every time you write something new, you will learn something new and you'll apply that lesson to the next one. You don't know how good you can be in 10 scripts time, in 5 scripts time, in 2 scripts time. You got to find out. You're not as good as you're going to be, but you are as good as you're going to be if you stop writing. So number one is get on with the next thing. As for, should you make the shorts? Should you write the shorts? Maybe a lot of that is about opportunity and who you know, which you're going to get through networking, for instance, through this operation. But the number one piece of advice is get on with the next one. That's what the career is. It's the next one.
Could you talk about just what it was like, the shift in your writing career coming from the moment that first film that took somehow a decade to come off the ground, but then when it did, what was the difference before and after?
The difference was zero. It didn't change a single thing.
Really?
It was a worldwide number one on Netflix. I didn't take a meeting from it. I never met a person who watched it. But it inspired me. It made me think, well, maybe I can do this. And that's what made me get on with the next one. And the next one, and the next one. And those are now, some of them are made, some of them are made, some of them are in the process of being produced. I think if you want to be a writer, you will write. And then opportunities will start to unfold.
I'd love to get your thoughts on agents and how helpful they are and aren't in the early stages of a career.
I think it depends on the agent. I think it depends on what country you're in. I think that most of the time, as myself, as a younger writer, you get obsessed about the idea of representation because number one is it's validation, right? I'm doing this thing that I believe in. Can I get someone else who does this for a living to believe in it? That immediately is not that useful when you're viewing yourself as a business, right? If you're CEO of your company, you don't want to be emotionally fixated like that. And then it's like, well, they can make business happen. Kind of. It's not that they have right out the gate, a list of jobs that you're going to slot into. It is about the many subtle shades between tangible jobs and networking that makes you a person who can be perceived as a person you can work with. And it's all the weird aspects of that. Do I think you need an agent? I think other people's answer to that is going to be, well, you can make films on an iPhone now. You can go on TikTok and all that stuff. Yeah, all of that is true, not to be ignored. But if you want to go down more conventional routes, the thing that will move the needle still is going to be how much did you get done. The reps that I have in the UK, Nish Panchalat, Curtis Brown, who I've been with.
Oh, I know Nish.
Been with them for 12 years. The way we came together was I wrote Outside the Wire. I got it optioned. They found me because I got it optioned. And I was like, oh, these are good people. And that's how we connected. It wasn't that I wrote a short and they said, we want to represent you. Then I wrote a feature. No. I did the legwork. Now they do the legwork a lot of the time. But in the initial case, I think you have to do it.
I see agents as multipliers. Like basically you have to get to a certain point where there's something to multiply. If you're in 0, they can't multiply with 0, right? Even if it's a 1. But if you get to a 5, because you've done things, they can multiply that by 2 or 3, you know? And because they can open doors that you couldn't necessarily open yourself. But if you've opened enough doors yourself and you've proven to them you're worth their time, because they make a living off of being able to sell you, you know, but they can only sell you if you have something to sell. And if you're still on 0 or still on 1, there's not much to multiply, you know? So you don't need an agent when you start. You need an agent when you're going, you know? At least, and so I feel like there's this misconceptions that, oh, agents are going to get me somewhere. You have to get somewhere and then they can get you further.
Maybe we can distill that even further, which is that, yes, you do need an agent immediately from the moment you start having the compulsion to write. But at that stage, that agent is you. And then you're going to get to upgrade to someone who does it for money. But you being your own agent, because look, they're not doing something that you couldn't do if you were like, well, I'm going to make this my life's mission.
I know a few people that refuse to have agents. Yeah.
Right. You can network, you can meet the right people, you can start to make things, you can start to build your business. And then you're going to hire an agent who's, as you say, is going to multiply. But in the beginning, be your own agent. Accept it. 99% of the job is sales. 1% is creative.
Great. Well, Rob, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for picking these fantastic top 5 scripts. Congratulations to the writers for submitting your scripts and getting selected, because these are fantastic works. And if you can get them made, I'll make sure to show them to Rob. But definitely be sure to get your projects in for the next CenterFrame Selects that we have coming up. We've got Jed Shepard coming up. But Rob, thank you so much for doing this. I very much appreciate it. I hope your jet lag isn't too bad. So I hope you can manage.
Just lay a sheet over me and I'll go right to sleep here.
This is a comfy sofa, I tell you. Like many a good naps have been had on this sofa. But thank you again. And let's do it again. This was genuinely great. And let's see if we can get some more fantastic scripts your way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you guys for submitting them. It's been such a pleasure to read your projects, and you will be hearing from me really, really soon about what you'll be getting as a top 5 selectee. Also, to everybody else who's watching, please be sure to get your films onto centerframe.club, where we'll be selecting for the next industry showcase coming at the beginning of November. And also check out all the different festivals you can submit to, especially the British Short Film Awards, which are now open for submissions. So please be sure to check that out. Thanks again, Rob, and thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time with Jed Shepard as our next select.